Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into a topic that honestly usually gets a pretty visceral reaction. If you say the words product operations in a room full of product managers, I guarantee you half of them are going to instantly roll their eyes. They think it's just, another layer of corporate bureaucracy coming in to enforce useless frameworks and steal their strategic autonomy. But here's the thing, they are completely wrong. Products ops is arguably the most misunderstood role in the tech industry today. Let me be clear. If your product ops team is dictating your strategy, your company is fundamentally broken. They exist to scale execution, not to do your job for you. So today, we're going to unpack why product ops is actually your absolutely vital scaling infrastructure. As product teams scale, complexity naturally skyrockets, right? And the need for consistent processes and tighter alignment becomes absolutely impossible to ignore. Yet, organizations have this massive blind spot. They expect product managers to act as the visionary CEOs of their products, leading the charge. But at the exact same time, they force them into this brutal reality of acting as their own glorified administrative assistants. Seriously, they're buried under sticky notes, furiously switching between Jira, Excel, and like 5 different analytics dashboards just to keep the lights on. So the crucial point to remember here is that product ops is not responsible for setting your product vision or strategy. It doesn't dictate your strategy at all. Instead, it creates the noise-free environment where that strategic work can actually survive and scale. Because think about it, if you don't have a dedicated product ops function, your product strategy isn't what's scaling, your chaos is. Imagine a shared drive filled with folders titled Q3 Roadmaps version 4 Final Reel. That is exactly what scaling chaos looks like. Product ops steps in to reduce that noise, strip away the friction, and make your data actually easy to act on. Let me ask you a brutal question, and I want you to be really, really honest with yourself here. What percentage of your 40-hour work week is actually spent talking to the market? Versus, how much time are you spending chasing down metrics, versioning spreadsheets, and manually prepping slides for your very next status meeting? Because if your answer leans heavily toward that administrative stuff, well, you aren't actually doing product management. You're doing product operations. And honestly, you're probably doing it poorly because it isn't even your primary job. Paying premium salaries to strategic thinkers just to force them to spend 40% of their week on administrative data plumbing. I mean, that is a massive organizational failure. Just think about that waste for a second. When PMs are carrying the operational load all by themselves, serving as the go-between for multiple teams, chasing data, maintaining their own unique dashboards, you are literally losing almost half of their strategic brainpower to pure logistics. And all of this builds into a true alignment nightmare. This is perfectly captured by Pragmatic Institute instructor Dan Corbin. He points out the compounding inconsistency of teams operating without product ops. Think about it. When you have 20 different teams inventing their own processes, building 20 different types of roadmaps, and reporting their quarterly planning in 20 completely different ways, it becomes practically impossible for leadership to do any cohesive planning. Every PM acts as their own little island, and the entire organization suffers from that massive disconnect. And that disconnect, it has very real, very measurable consequences. When every PM invents their own process, it completely fragments your go-to-market strategies. Executive decisions slow to an absolute crawl because leadership just can't compare apples to apples across the different teams, and that destroys trust. Your time to value plummets while PM burnout absolutely skyrockets because your teams are so buried in spreadsheet versioning, they stop using curated, accessible data and start relying on gut feelings. They get pushed straight into an exhausting, endless survival mode. Which leads us to a rather absurd but entirely common situation. Fun fact for you, if your product managers are constantly begging procurement for different user research tools simply because they dislike what the other squads are using, you don't have an empowered product culture. What you actually have is a localized tech stack civil war, and I can guarantee you your finance team absolutely hates you for it. This kind of fragmentation is exactly what we need to solve. So, how do we actually fix this chaos? Well, we implement product ops as a strategic enablement engine. Product ops centralizes all that tedious work that every single product manager is currently wasting time doing on their own. It specifically supports 3 core areas: product standards, market insights, and business insights. And a highly effective product ops team will use established methodologies, like the pragmatic framework, for example, as a diagnostic tool. They use it to spot exactly where teams are falling short, where product discovery is breaking down, and where teams are just needlessly duplicating their efforts. Amy Graham, another expert from the Pragmatic Institute, sums this up perfectly. She points out that product ops is a maturing function that provides wonderful governance to help product teams actually succeed. Notice the phrasing there, it's key. It isn't about red tape, it's not about slowing people down, it is entirely about providing the necessary governance required to remove roadblocks. It's the infrastructure that paves the road so your PMs can drive much, much faster.
To really show you, not just tell you, what this looks like in practice, consider what we call the recruiting test. Imagine you need to run discovery interviews with senior citizens on Medicaid who are bilingual and live in the Rio Grande Valley. How long would it take you to recruit them? For a solo PM doing their own admin, that is 3 weeks of absolute logistical hell just trying to find the right people. But with a product ops team, they handle the recruitment, the logistics, the screeners, and the scheduling. The PM just shows up and asks the strategic questions. Now that is what true leverage looks like. Now let's dive into your exact tactical playbook for deploying this enablement engine and scaling your execution effectively. If you want to get out of the chaos, you need to follow these 3 core steps: standardizing workflows, weaponizing AI for process automation, and rethinking when it's actually the right time to start. Let's break down that first one. So for our first tactic, standardize the workflow, not the strategy. You have got to stop letting 20 teams use 20 different roadmap formats. Product ops must enforce consistent templates, implement shared discovery tools, and ensure centralized access to analyst data. And remember, enforcing shared tools and templates doesn't limit a PM's creativity. That's a huge misconception. It simply removes the friction of starting from scratch every single time, which frees up their creative energy for actual real product problems. Moving to tactic 2, you need to weaponize AI for process automation. AI is such a massive lever for product ops. Just look at this number, 4. Dan Corbin proved you can use AI to slash a highly complex 17-step manual intake process down to just 4 steps. That's incredible. Product ops should absolutely own the creation of these shared AI agents for repetitive tasks, like parsing through endless customer feedback, saving individual squads from wasting countless hours building their own bespoke GPT bots. And regarding tactic 3, you must stop believing the myth that you need to be some 5,000 employee mega enterprise to start utilizing product ops. It is not about company size. It is entirely about readiness. Even just one single dedicated operations person managing shared tools and streamlining the onboarding of new PMs creates massive leverage across a growing product organization. Seriously, stop waiting for some arbitrary headcount milestone to fix your execution problems. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final reality check to deeply consider. When a product fails, we almost always blame the market or the vision. But ask yourself, is your product strategy actually failing because the market rejected it? Or is it failing because your team is simply too buried in operational chaos to actually execute that strategy effectively? Product operations is what shields your strategy from that exact chaos. To synthesize everything we've covered today, standardized workflows plus centralized data plus AI automation equals a scalable product strategy. Product ops is not back-office administrative support. It is your ultimate strategic advantage. It turns successful one-off launches into repeatable, systemic wins. So ask yourself, as the market moves faster and complexity deepens, will your company build the operational engine required to actually scale your vision, or will you just keep scaling your chaos? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building.